not really focusing on areas that were key to the industry. So I think that we still need to look at how we go about training, and we need to get back to that. And it comes back down to dollars and cents.
Okay, before we get into the new program that has been introduced in secondary schools to educate and inculcate tourism into the curriculum, we have another caller. So welcome, caller. Good night.
Yes, good night, and good night to the panel.
Good night.
Before I say what I'm going to say, I think the caller before was a bit wrong, because Ms. Hood did try to do some things to help the tourism industry in terms of sending people to train, etc. So I think the caller is incorrect here. But what I want to specifically say is that it seems to me that money is the whole thing that you're all talking about. The government have not been putting enough money into the tourism industry. But if you look at Barbados, for instance, they spend a tremendous amount of money into tourism. And right now, some of the cruise lines are pulling out from Barbados and in Caribbean on the whole, because they're focusing their energies and more in the Mediterranean. So I'm wondering, pumping more money on tourism and road shows and all these things might be a waste of time, because the cruise lines, they're pulling out eventually. I think it's 2 or 3, because like I said, they'll be going more to the Mediterranean. So I'm wondering if it's necessary that they put more money into it. And also, I would like to find out, when you all go on these road shows, all this amount of people is needed? 16, 17, the previous government did it, and this one is the same thing. What, 16 or 15 people go to talk up to promote a little island like Grenada? I want to find out why it is that all these people go in. Thank you.
Mrs. Hood, before you respond, there's another caller. So, good night, caller.
Question, so we can remember to answer it.
Good night, caller.
Hello, good night.
Good night.
I want to ask Mrs. Hood a question, because, you know, you hear Mrs. Hood on the television tonight speaking about what should have been done and what should not have been done and all of this, and that the budget is not enough. Mrs. Hood was there in a government that was in office for 13 years. And now she's criticizing this government. Okay, fair. But what did she do during her tenure that improved the Grenada tourism product in terms of upgrading Grenada, upgrading Livera, upgrading River and Twine, upgrading Concord Falls, and all of the other prime tourism sites that became part of the product? What did she do? Nothing was done. These places were left to just fall apart. You have the situation also in the market in St. George's. Her administration had that project running for 10 years with about 4 different contractors. Each of them bust on the job, collapse, fall apart, and now she's coming and blaming this administration for not fixing the problem. She didn't listen to the news tonight. Finally, this government was able to raise millions of dollars from the Venezuelans that they're going to be finally getting this project finished. This was another fiasco, just like many other projects they started that they never completed. So it's really a joke to come and hear Ms. Hood coming now and trying to put blame on everybody else but herself, because she was the minister for quite some time, and they had a bigger budget, as she said, and they were more serious. Therefore, all these problems should have been solved.
I just want to say that perhaps that caller doesn't understand that in 2004 we had a hurricane. The whole country was destroyed, and we had to rebuild the country from scratch. He said that we didn't do Concord Falls. I just want the caller to know that Concord Falls is not owned by the government. It's a private company that owns it, person, and we met many times with that person. As a matter of fact, I was pushing community tourism, and we were looking at all of the sites to see what can be done so that we can partner with those people, because we felt, and I felt, that many of these sites, this is how you would improve on the product locally. In terms of Livera project, I don't think he understands. A lot of work was done there. As far as I know, it was done there. There was a staff there. The building was collapsed, and it was rebuilt. In terms of the market square, you don't blame Mrs. Hood for the market square. The contract was given to the contractor. If they didn't produce, as you say, then they changed the contractor. When this new government came into office, a contract was signed with a gentleman from St. John's, and they said, as they have done in all other projects, review it. And this is why today it is not completed. I'm quite pleased to hear that if I had listened to the news this evening, I would have known that the Venezuelan government is going to be completing that project. And I think Mr. Dabrio would be very pleased also. And most people would be pleased, because that I saw is not good for Grenada, is not good for anyone, and not good for the tongue of St. George, because that is the beauty of the place. So when you come in, when the caller says that Mrs. Hood didn't do anything, I'm not too sure what he's talking about, because I am proud of my accomplishment as Minister for Tourism. I have no, I have no regret in what I have done. If I had to do it all over again, I will do it. Maybe there might be changes in terms of doing some other stuff, but then you cannot predict disaster. And when you have disaster, for instance, the government was pledged, a lot of millions of dollars were pledged, but after 2004, on the 26th of December, you had a tsunami in Indonesia, and most of the resources went there instead of coming to Grenada. So it is difficult at times, but the fact is that, and we're not here to discuss politics, we're here to discuss tourism, but the fact is that this current administration said they would do it better.
Before we take Ian, who is going to comment on the state of the tourism product presently, which is a challenge for us, and also the previous caller on the repositioning of the cruise ship. We have another caller.
Oh, yes, I have to take
Good night, caller. Welcome to the program.
Good evening, ma'am. I would like to ask both Mr. Ian Dabrio and our former Minister of Tourism 2 questions. One is that from the perspective of human capital for the tourism industry, it doesn't matter what government seems to be in power, we seem to overlook that critical element. And I'm talking about education from the point of managers to middle managers, people being trained who come in contact with the tourists. Our customer service is so atrocious in Grenada, and yet still we do nothing about it. That's one concern I have as a Grenadian. My second concern is the product development. Since I was 5 years old, our tourism attraction has been the same, and they're still the same today. There is nothing new, there is no improvement. As a matter of fact, the existing tourism products are getting so unattended and such little attention from the Board of Tourism. I'm talking about things like some of our waterfalls. You can't even go to them. Somebody might hold you up or steal from you. I mean to say, I think we really have to see tourism in a more serious light. And then I'm also disappointed that even from the administration level, they seem to always have some conflict and nitpicking among the people who should be driving the industry. I would really find out, is there some serious plan for this tourism industry of Grenada, which we so all depend on?
Thank you, caller. Ian, the state of our tourism product, both physical and human. We hear the callers talking about the service quality. We hear them talking about the state of the product. As a matter of fact, on the 1995 master plan, we would have seen mention the Mount Carmel waterfall that was in some state of readiness and had a number of visitors going there. Today, it is no longer a product that is patronized by visitors for obvious reasons. Comment on the state of the product.
Well, yes, our product in Grenada does need a lot of attention. And I would not put that attention coming from government. I think that government is there to set the avenue, the policies, and to outsource a lot of product areas, maybe Grenada, maybe Livera, if it's government owned, and get people who are in the industry and people who can find the resources to develop and have these products so that you and I would be proud of, and also look at it as a business, because we have guests that come on island and they just don't come here Monday to Friday. Most of these areas are closed on weekends, and a lot of the guests come on the island and they say, well, what's open today? The thing is that we ourselves, we keep blaming, and we want to put a lot of the emphasis on governments. Governments don't run businesses, and I think that until we get an understanding of that and move away from that factor, we are going to be in the situation that we are in now for a long time to come. We just need, as Grenadians, there are a lot of Grenadians who have a lot of money and who have money to invest in the tourism industry, and if they want to take it seriously, they can do it. and be a proud Grenadian, to say that I am in the industry and we are doing this to help develop Grenada as a country that can grow economically and to increase the number of jobs that people are looking for out there. And then, of course, I have to put blame on some of the people outside there too, our local Grenadians. We need to take the initiative. A number of years ago, we did not have schools and classes, but now we do, and we need to find out about these classes. We need to go get ourselves upgraded, you know, and do evening classes. There are no classes at SGU, and I think that you teach us a couple of them. TAMCC has more classes now for tourism, and I think that as Grenadians, we need to get ourselves involved. We can't just say that, well, I'm looking for a job and just give me a paycheck. We need to get involved, and I think that is part of the issues that has arisen over the years. And yes, a lot of small businesses are to be blamed. Sometimes they don't have the resources to send some of the staff for training, but the staff has to understand too, they need to develop themselves as part of the industry. And I think that it's a two-way street, but we need, as Grenadians, to get more serious. Maybe more programs like this, Naileen, get more tourism officials on the program so that Grenadians get an understanding of what has been taking place and what will continue to take place. A lot of the information probably has not been given out, and we are talking here tonight, we're giving figures, we're giving numbers, and these are things that people have to understand. The agricultural sector goes hand in hand with tourism, but if the farmers don't understand the importance of their role in terms of having produce that can be sustained over a 6-month period to the hotels, how do you expect hotels to buy from you? And of course, if your prices are not correct, will match what they can import products for, then you're creating issues that we ourselves as business people have to look at, because I'm not going to necessarily buy the local products if I can bring it in cheaper. So it has to be a blend. Has to be a blend. And then of course, hotels have been complaining for years that I can get all the tomatoes I want for the next week, and then 2 weeks after that I can't get anything. But it's slowly changing, and I think the farmers have to get a sense of that, and our officials in Grenada have to see what this tourism entity is all about and go forward with it. We talk about cruise lines, and you talk about the market, as Mrs. Hood said. We have a beautiful cruise terminal, and then as you walk out of there, what do you see? An eyesore. This is not something that should be there, and I know a lot of, even as we speak, I know Mr. Lord, I've seen it on the news that he's having issues with, because they're taking a stand, and these things should have been done maybe many years ago, but there is no better time than now, at least, to go forward. And until Grenadians themselves start looking at things in a more realistic manner, things will not go forward. I mean, we sit and we discuss and we criticize everyone about, I mean, okay, look at the, for example, the Lagoon project with Mr. Desavry. We sat there and we just criticized this, that, and the other, and how he's come here as a real estate agent to buy and sell and do whatever. Look at what he's done for Grenada. It takes somebody with an initiative, it takes someone with money to be able to do what he has done, and hopefully he will put things in place that will continue and develop Grenada over the next few years.
Okay, we want to hold that thought because we have another caller, and I would like to come back to revisit that Port Louis project that you mentioned with Mr. Peter Desavry. Good evening, caller. Welcome to you, Desavry.
Yes, good evening.
Good evening.
Yeah, yes, good evening to the panel, Mr. Dabrio and Mr. Hood. Yeah, what I'm saying that the caller that say about 13 years Miss Brenda Hood spent in government there, but I know she have done a lot for this country, Grenada. And when people speaking, they must speak with facts. He do as if he ain't living in Grenada. You understand? She have done a lot, and Mr. Dabrio, that are they going good, and I like to see how are they talking there, and are they trying to see how things will go in this country. You know me, because this government do doing so good in this country, right?
Thank you,
okay.
caller.